I wish to begin by saying this video was inspired by the content curated by the individual behind the Twitter account JRD. The content created and presented in this account has been truly valuable to me, and I am thankful to the account operator for taking the time to keep many of us informed. In just a moment, I will present to you a statement made by Garrett Ahern of Fine Gael, a man I happen to despise, where he expresses his outrage at the idea that our politicians have made decisions that resemble the Nazis of 1939, or child abuse, or medical apartheid. Then I will present a series of videos that will deal with the complaints made by Ahern.
So when we hear people talking, we get emails from people saying, oh, the decisions that are being made is like Nazi Germany in 1939. The decisions made this week is child abuse. The decisions that were made over the last number of months is medical apartheid. There's two MPs in the UK who have died in the last 5 years from people who had radical views. It's not a matter of if, it's when this will happen at some point in our state. And people will stand up here and say that they were wonderful politicians. It's a tragic thing that happened. How did it ever get to this stage? How did it happen?
We need to ensure that we put the interests of people who are vaccinated first, but to those who are unvaccinated, who are being so selfish, I think the message from government has to be, we're going to stand up for those who are being responsible. Very much.
More extensive use of digital COVID certification. At the moment, it's largely used in hospitality, it's used in international travel. I think it pretty much should be used everywhere at this point, going to a match, going to your local barber, going pretty much everywhere. And you know what, at the moment, those who aren't vaccinated, and some have chosen, some are unable to be vaccinated, they're largely kept out of that. There's a bit of an inequality to all of this, and we constantly get emails into our constituency offices about this.
And I think, like others have said, gyms, hairdressers, but why not supermarkets? Why not public transport? I know it's difficult to police some of these things, but really, if you want to participate in society, you need to be vaccinated. And if you don't want to participate in society, OK, stay at home. That's your own business.
I heard a commentator compare masks in school to a form of child abuse, which is absolutely ridiculous and scandalous, and is an insult to anybody who has unfortunately suffered a form of child abuse. Masks are an inconvenience. They're a bit of a pain. That's it. That's as much as they are, as I said, except if you have a medical condition. And you know, most children will have no issue. They'll see them as being, they'll see them as what grown-ups do and wear and have, and they'll probably enjoy it to a form. You know, and in many cases, their parents that are the problem.
But I'm going to say it here again. I'm not afraid of them. I'm in favour of the vaccination. I'm in favour of the vaccine, sir.
It's all about layers of protection. So the regulations I'll be signing this evening in terms of international travel is one layer. It's imperfect. A hotel quarantine would be another layer. It's imperfect. And we have home quarantine in place for the 7 listed countries.
I don't believe that we're using the vaccination infrastructure that we've built to its optimal. I really believe that the COVID certificate should be used far more widely. I cannot understand why the COVID certificate isn't required for access to gyms, hairdressers, hotels, events and other such events that take place around the country.
And this is the only way. This is the only way to proceed. We cannot allow unvaccinated people to take up services which are urgently required and not available to the population who are vaccinated and need those services now as well. Thank you.
When the history of this time is written, historians will see that the people of the country were dealt with and cared for by people to the absolute best of their ability, who didn't get everything right.
I wish to briefly summarise what was being discussed in the video clips just presented. According to the politicians who spoke so openly, they claim the unvaccinated are selfish. They believe the COVID cert, or as I prefer, the government permission slip, which was promised never to be used for anything other than international travel, should be expanded to every part of our lives, from buying food in your local supermarket to attending a sporting event, a gym, and everything in between. Of course, this would have a severe impact on those who value the right to bodily integrity. Stephen Donnelly has brought into being the powers to incarcerate free people in centralised locations and has members of An Garda Síochána and the Defence Forces to assist. I have spoken at great length my feelings of such policies and indeed those who participate in such operations. Fergus O'Dowd believes the unvaccinated must not be allowed to take up services urgently required by those who possess the government permission slip. Most shocking to me, Sean Kine has made it clear that if your definition of child abuse does not meet his, then you, the parent, are the problem. I have to ask, who does this immoral parasite think he is to tell the parent of a small child what constitutes child abuse? The fact that he would dare to suggest that he knows what's best for your child compared to you as a mother or father, considering the power and influence he wields, should worry you. And before I move on, I would argue that strapping a spit-soaked rag to the face of a child for 8 hours a day while sitting in a classroom with open windows in the middle of winter is not conducive to the welfare of a child. At this stage, I wish to suggest that if the evidence does not help to convince you that we are being governed by immoral and quite frankly evil people who have sold themselves the idea that your individual rights must be sacrificed for what they view as the common good, then I believe you are lost. The words of our politicians have given life to authoritarian policies that target those of us who value freedom. They have served to segregate us and discriminate against us for not submitting to their will. I submit, when members of the public accuse you of acting like Nazis, they have more than enough evidence through policies suggested, created, and supported to substantiate such a claim. In closing, I wish to express the following sentiments. This government has taken all of its cues from the lack of pushback. The silent majority, through compliance and conformity, has given rise to a new, more arrogant and brazen political establishment who speak openly about the many ways to control the lives of the people they govern, and indeed discuss the many ways to punish those who do not submit. It has only become acceptable to use force and coercion as political tools because the majority allowed it. It has only become acceptable to present a government permission slip to participate in society because the majority allowed it. I believe one thing is clear. If the majority of our people are not morally inclined to speak out when obvious injustices are being committed, then I believe the rights of the individual must be given a type of unbreakable legal protection that is superior to the will of the government and indeed the will of the mob, because this can never happen again. This madness, orchestrated by government, is far from over. To those who value freedom, particularly those who march in defiance of government tyranny, whether vaccinated or not, I just want to acknowledge you. You have my respect and admiration for fighting to protect what is valuable to you. The future is uncertain, and I must confess that I fear the worst. And although our politicians are fully invested in the idea that they are doing the right thing, I will feel perfectly comfortable and indeed righteous in halting their steady march towards totalitarianism, should the right conditions present themselves.